So let's go ahead and get started. I am thrilled to see so many of you here and thrilled that you're interested in our Department of Counseling graduate programs. And the intention for tonight is to try to provide you with information, give you an overview, and answer questions that you might have. We know this is a big step. It's a lot to think about. And so we're so happy that you're here tonight. I am Dr. Rebecca Toporek. I'm chair in the Department of Counseling and also a professor here. I've been at San Francisco State in the Department of Counseling since 2003. So I've been here a long time, and this is my 4.5 years of being chair of the department. So again, I'm really pleased to see all of you here and hope that this is helpful for you as you navigate the application and also navigate the choices and the decisions that you have to make. The things that I'm going to recommend for you to do in addition to attending this session is to really explore our website carefully, taking a look at the academics page, taking a look at the people's page, and also the admissions page. That will give you a lot of information. All right. Okay, so for this information session, in addition to doing my introductions, I also actually, one thing left out of my introduction that I want to be sure to mention, I use she and they pronouns in case that comes up for you. I also will talk about our program, our mission, our aspirations, talking about more details about the specific programs, the courses, and our internships, and then the admissions process. Again, here's the QR code for these slides on our website, and you're welcome to follow along with those as we go along. Before we go any further, I want to acknowledge and share gratitude. San Francisco State University is located on the occupied Ohlone Ramaytush territories, and we humbly acknowledge that our opportunity to live and work in what is now called the San Francisco Bay Area is only possible by the sacrifice of many Indigenous people historically, as well as their contributions today. I also want to acknowledge that we benefit from the many Black and Brown communities who worked, often in unjust circumstances, to make the public university system possible in California, as well as the US as a whole. I also want to extend a special gratitude to those folks who continue to work for land rematriation and justice, both in the Bay Area, but the country and the world as a whole. The image that you see to the right, or the image that's portrayed on the right of the slide, is called We Are Still Here. This is the Native American community mural at San Francisco State University. The We Are Still Here is written in red letters, and that reflects something that's painted on the island of Alcatraz, bringing back memories of the occupation of Alcatraz in the late 60s. You can see in this mural students, San Francisco State student wearing the purple graduation gown, as well as Indigenous peoples historically and currently. Next up, about us. The image that you see here is actually our dean wearing the red gown, and he is hooding 2 graduate students in a hooding ceremony. The one that's standing by looking on is one of our graduates who was hooded that year, honored. The hooding is an honor across the university for outstanding graduate students. So focusing on our mission as a department is really our aspiration and a summary of our values. It's something that we're working toward and is a constant drive for us to try to meet. We are always in progress working toward this aspiration. We aspire to train the next generation of counselor leaders who recognize that the liberation of all communities is only possible when an intersectional, participatory, community-driven approach to counseling is practiced. Our training program is grounded in the belief that counseling as a field of practice affords professionals the knowledge and skills needed to carry out social justice work via strength-based healing and wellness, advocacy, critical consciousness development, and action-oriented scholarship and research. I want to also note one of the questions that came in the registration was about what is the department founded on and how does that show up in terms of teaching? And so what I'd like to say is to take a minute to take a look at the intersectional, participatory, and community-driven approach, as well as strengths-based healing, wellness, advocacy, critical consciousness development, action-oriented scholarship, and research. And to say, for those of you not familiar with intersectionality, that is an approach and a perspective that takes a look at identities as a complex web of our identities, our cultural identities that we bring, not only in terms of who we see ourselves to be, but also who the world sees us to be. And that web, that intersection of those different identities is more complex than the sum of its parts. And so, for example, I, as a white presenting woman, a settler woman, am treated differently, and my experience in the world is different than someone, say, someone else who identifies as a woman, but does not identify as a white woman, let's say identifies as a Black woman or an Indigenous woman, or someone who is a trans woman. And so the intersectional part of our approach is to recognize the value of that intersectionality and the importance of it within counseling, mental health, and our experiences, both in the classroom, but also as clients, as community members, as family members. Participatory aspect, we look at in terms of our community relationships with our internship sites, with the organizations in the community, but also the ways that we participate with students, the collaboratory efforts that we have with students, as well as the ways that we try to get student input on things like our class schedule, on the ways that we do things, and then our classes being participatory in terms of, as much as possible, trying to engage and bring students and faculty together in conversation in the classroom around the topics that are being explored and are a part of the counseling training. Community-driven approach is looking at how counseling and how our curriculum is related and relevant to the communities that we're in. We try to be informed by those communities in a number of different ways. And so we hold that value dear to us. We also, as counseling, one of the questions that often comes up is what's the difference between counseling and other fields? While I can't comment on the other fields, I will comment on counseling, and that is that counseling has historically and currently has a strength-based perspective on growth, on healing, on lives, on families. We also focus on wellness as opposed to, while we need to understand pathology and mental illness, we do that within a framework of wellness and recovery as opposed to illness. We also hold advocacy as one of the central values, both within our department, but also within the field. That is becoming stronger and stronger within the field. And I, for one, have spent a lot of my professional life focusing on that aspect. Critical consciousness development is also a part of development as a student, as well as a clinician. And so critical consciousness in this context refers in part to our understanding of who we are in context, who our clients are in context, and particularly within the socio-political context that we all live in. Our identities and how oppression and privilege influence our experiences and our clients' experiences. The action-oriented scholarship and research aspect really focuses on that the work that we do as scholars, the work that you do as scholars, as student scholars, really ought to be toward the betterment of our clients and our communities. And so it needs to be relevant as opposed to something that may be academically removed from the experiences of our communities and our clients and our students. So about the department, some of the main questions that come from participants are choosing among specializations. What does it mean to have a specialization and an emphasis? So I'm going to spend a fair amount of time talking about this aspect and to tell you that we have 6 different specializations within the department. We have career counseling, we have clinical mental health counseling, college counseling, gerontological counseling, marriage, family, and child counseling, and school counseling. When you apply to the program, you must choose one of these 6 to be your specialization. In addition, you may also apply to add a second area as an emphasis, and I'll talk more about what that means and what that might look like. Just to clarify one more piece that's important for you to know as you do your application, while we have 6 specializations, they are divided up into 3 different degrees. One is a Master of Science in Counseling, and the 4 different specializations that fall under that degree program are career counseling, college counseling, gerontological counseling, and school counseling. So if any of those 4 specializations are your goal, then in the application, you will indicate that you want to pursue a Master of Science in Counseling, and then indicate one of those 4 specializations. If you're wanting to pursue a clinical mental health counseling specialization, you would identify your degree program as Master of Science in Clinical Mental Health Counseling. If you're wanting to pursue marriage, family, and child counseling, you must indicate that your degree program would be the Master of Science in Counseling with concentration in marriage, family, and child counseling. That's a distinct degree, different from the Master of Science in Counseling and different from the Master of Science in Clinical Mental Health Counseling. I'll explain more how these are all related in the program because they are all related. We all are a community together, despite this being these 3 different degree programs. So again, I've mentioned the different specializations, the 6 different specializations. And as I mentioned, you can also choose a secondary area as an emphasis. 4 of the specializations offer an emphasis: career counseling, clinical mental health counseling, college counseling, and gerontological counseling. If you do choose an emphasis, you would take the specialization courses plus the emphasis courses, complete the internship requirements both for the specialization and the emphasis. In some cases, this requires 3 more years of internship. I'll talk more about all of this in a little bit, so sit back and take it all in. If when you apply, you only choose a specialization, and once you're in the program, you become interested. We have many of these emphases are actually discovery areas that students learn about once they're in the program and realize that there's an added area of expertise that they would like to have. You can request to add the emphasis once you're in the program. Okay, so one of the biggest questions that comes up every single information session and through emails are questions about, should I choose this specialization or program, or should I choose this? What's the difference between counseling, social work, clinical psychology, clinical mental health, marriage and family therapy? Those questions are very complex and they don't have simple, direct answers. So what I'm going to do instead is to give you some guidelines about what you ought to do, really, in order to gather the information that you need in order to make the decision that's the best decision for you and your goal. The first thing is to read about each of our specializations. What are the required classes? Who are the specialization faculty? And what do they study? You can find that information on our academics webpage, and then you can find the bios of the faculty on the people page. Think about also what type of setting you want to work in. Do you want to work in hospitals, schools, colleges, universities, nonprofits, centers, private practice? What type of counseling do you want to do? Look at the job announcements for jobs that you're interested. to try to understand what are the requirements. Do they require a license? And if so, what type of license do they require? Do they require a certification? And if so, what type of certification? That's an important aspect to take a look at so that when you're deciding on which program to follow, you know whether you're doing one that requires a license or not. Think about also what populations you want to work with and in what ways do you want to work with them? Are you doing mental health counseling? Are you doing a blend of different things? Do you want to do teaching? Think about all of the different aspects of what you're really aspiring to do. If you have mentors who've helped you get to this point, talk with them about the different types of counseling and the strengths and what you've identified as your goals to help you sort of narrow that down. If your career goal does involve licensed work, specifically mental health counseling, it's important to take a look at the differences between the different licenses. And you can look at that on the California Board of Behavioral Sciences website. They post information that differentiates between social work, the LPCC, which is the licensed professional clinical counselor, and the MFT license, which is the license for marriage family therapy. Now, once you've done all of this information gathering, compare what you've learned about our programs with what you learn about other programs. If you're debating between counseling, psychology, social work, or other fields, be sure to talk to each program, take advantage of their information sessions, read the BBS website, look at course requirements, and read job announcements. As I said, this is not a simple answer. It's not a simple decision. And for each person, for each applicant, the things that they're considering, the goals, the desires, their strengths, what they're looking for is all different. And so it's important to do your research because your answer may be different than someone else's. Next, I'd like to talk a little bit about professional paths and careers of our graduates. And you see here one of my very favorite pictures of our graduates. This is the year before we went virtual due to COVID. This is our graduation class of 2019. So I'm going to go through each specialization and talk about the paths for each specialization, depending on whether you're pursuing a license or not licensed. And then what the types of work settings, career settings, and the types of folks that counselors in those settings work with. So I'll start with the career counseling specialization. And at the top arrow, you'll see career counseling, no license needed. And so for that path, someone would follow just the career counseling specialization. They often may combine that with college counseling emphasis or even gerontological counseling or CMHC emphasis, the clinical mental health, which I'll talk about in just a minute because that's the pathway to follow for licensure. If a student is not interested in licensure, and career counselors who are not doing mental health counseling actually do not need to be licensed in the state of California, they would pursue the specialization classes in career counseling to be a career practitioner, a career counselor, and often those folks work in college and university career centers, employment agencies, nonprofits, and private practice as career counselors. Depending on the setting, they may work with college students, high school students, adults of all ages. Career counseling is actually one of those that spans many, many different types of settings and many different types of populations. For folks who are interested in doing career counseling, in other words, working with clients around their life choices about work, career, managing job stress, those kinds of things, and combine it with mental health counseling, may want to pursue the LPCC license. And you can do that by adding a CMHC emphasis. If you are wanting to be licensed as a career counseling specialist with an LPCC license, you take both the career counseling specialization classes and requirements and also the clinical mental health specialization classes. You would choose internships that align with both of those. And then once you graduate, you complete post-degree supervised hours and take 2 licensure exams. Folks with an LPCC license with a specialization in career counseling tend to work in holistic career counseling, including mental health counseling, college and university career centers, employment agencies, nonprofits, and private practice. Again, that could be with anybody from any age group. The college counseling specialization I'll talk about next because that tends to be somewhat linked to career counseling in terms of our students tend to have interest in both areas. Most college counselors do not need a license to practice, and most of our college counseling students don't necessarily pursue licensure because they're interested in working in community colleges and universities as counselors, advisors, student retention specialists, student affairs professionals, instructors, student resource centers, and administrators. In those settings, they work with adults primarily, mostly between the ages of 18 and 25, but actually of all ages. I myself am a former community college counselor as well as university counselor, both in career centers, but also in mental health counseling, and definitely worked with people even up to age of 75. Returning to school. Folks who are interested in doing college student mental health, in other words, working within the mental health or counseling and psychological services within a college or a university, would do a college counseling specialization with a clinical mental health emphasis. Again, with the clinical mental health emphasis for the LPCC license, you would complete those requirements. But then when you graduate, you need to complete post-degree supervised hours and licensure exams. And again, I'll talk in more depth about that in a little bit. For gerontological counseling, that's most often combined with a CMHC emphasis or as an emphasis from marriage and family therapy. For those folks who are not planning to work in mental health counseling, but do want to focus on working with elders, they would pursue gerontological counseling and work with elders in nonprofits, community mental health, healthcare settings, often under the supervision of a licensed provider. For those who want to provide mental health counseling directly themselves, as I said, they would combine that with a CMHC emphasis and then complete the post-degree supervised hours and licensure exams. The school counseling specialization leads to a PPS credential. So for anyone who wants to be a school counselor, they must choose a school counseling specialization because a PPS credential is required for that role. There are some folks who also choose to do school counseling and also pursue a license. So they would have a license and the PPS credential. Let me first talk about school counselors who do not pursue licensure, but only pursue the PPS credential. They would take the school counseling specialization and work in K through 12 settings, public, private, and charter schools. They work as school counselors and administrators in districts around the Bay Area, but also around the country. Perhaps it's obvious, they work with children, adolescents. They also tend to work with young adults sometimes. So their role involves working with teachers, parents, and community members. School counseling students often add a career counseling emphasis. And again, if they're planning to pursue licensure, they would add a CMHC emphasis, clinical mental health counseling. And as with all of the other clinical mental health counseling students, they would complete the requirements and then post-degree after graduating have 3,000 hours to complete and the licensure exam. Again, I'll talk a little bit more about licensure in a few minutes. Now, for those people who specifically want clinical mental health counseling specialization, that their primary emphasis is to get the degree and to work in community mental health, private practice, healthcare settings, working in integrative behavioral health, they may choose clinical mental health counseling as their specialization. It's important to note that students with clinical mental health counseling specialization can also choose to have emphases to go along with that. So if they'd like to gain additional expertise in career counseling, college counseling, or gerontological counseling, they can have those as their emphasis. Again, as I mentioned, with the clinical mental health counseling, in order to pursue an LPCC, you must complete post-degree supervised hours and the licensure exam. Folks who are interested in the marriage, family, and child counseling specialization, or specifically the licensed marriage and family therapist, would choose, when you apply, the marriage, family, and child counseling specialization and the degree program associated with that. For students who are only pursuing the LMFT, the licensed marriage and family therapist, and not two licenses, would only choose the marriage, family, and child counseling specialization and not the CMHC emphasis. I want to emphasize that we do have quite a few students who are pursuing the LMFT, the marriage and family child counseling specialization, who also choose an emphasis in career counseling or college counseling. That is an option, and that's something that many of our folks, especially if they're specifically interested in marriage, family, and child counseling, but perhaps want to do that in a college setting, or integrate career into the family counseling, which for most of us who have families, we know what an impact work has on our family relationships, do a career emphasis. For those who want to pursue both the LMFT license and LPCC license, you would choose a specialization in marriage, family, and child counseling, and also an emphasis in clinical mental health counseling. I'll talk again a little bit more about the licensure requirements for both of those, so I'm not going to spend too much time on that right now, but just say that LMFTs tend to work in private practice, nonprofit mental health, college student mental health, school wellness centers, and healthcare settings. Those who add an LPCC license similarly do that, but do that from a slightly different perspective. One of the questions that often comes up between the MFCC program, the Marriage, Family, and Child Counseling, and the CMHC program is, what is the difference? And I will share just a little bit. There is an overlap quite a bit in terms of the types of clients and the types of settings that you work in. The Marriage, Family, and Child Counseling, or MFT, as a whole takes a family systems approach and perspective in the ways that they look at counseling. And the CMHC, Clinical Mental Health Counseling, takes an integrative behavioral health focus and tends to focus a little bit more on the biopsychosocial aspects and integration of those, as well as may have a little bit more case management experience. Again, there's quite a bit of overlap. I strongly encourage you, if you're trying to decide between those two, to look through the information on our website in the academics section for each of those specializations. We also have videos for each of our specializations on the admissions page. In addition, look at the BBS website and take a look at the difference between those two licenses. So overall, we have multiple licenses and certifications that are available to graduates of our program. We have, as I mentioned, the licensed marriage and family therapist, which comes through the specialization of the MFCC. There is the licensed professional clinical counselor, LPCC, and that comes through the specialization or emphasis of clinical mental health counseling. In addition, the Pupil Personnel Services Credential, PPS, and that is a school counseling credential. In addition, there are also national certifications. There is a national certified counselor, so graduates of our program can sit for that exam and become certified as NCC. Those who do a career specialization or emphasis can also pursue the certified career counselor, which is an exam post-degree. Those who pursue the clinical mental health counseling can apply for a certified mental health counselor and the certified rehabilitation counselor. So a little bit about licensure and credential requirements. This is a very brief summary. And so again, I want to encourage you to take a look at the BBS website and also our website to get more information. The license in professional clinical counseling, the LPCC, requires a master's degree in counseling with clinical counseling training. In our program, the specialization or emphasis is clinical mental health counseling. In addition to the internships, courses, and other requirements within the program, once the student graduates, they will need to do 3,000 hours of supervised counseling experience after completing the program. In addition, they'll take licensure exams post-degree and then also after the hours are completed. For the LMFT, the Licensed Marriage and Family Therapy, that requires a master's degree in MFCC or MFT. In our program, it's MFCC. That requires a total of 3,000 hours of supervised experience, some of which can be completed as a part of the master's program. I believe it's maybe 1,300 hours can be completed as a part of the internships while in the master's program, and the rest of those must be completed after graduation. There are also licensure exams for the LMFT, and those are taken post-degree and post-licensure, or sorry, post-supervised hours. For the Pupil Personnel Services Credential, PPS, that requires a master's degree in school counseling. And in addition, there are state mandated forms and health clearances. And our website, the School Counseling Specialization website, explains the details about those requirements. As you're looking at different schools and considering the different options that you have in terms of where you decide to commit yourself, for this really big commitment for studying, make sure that it's an accredited institution. The Western Association of Schools and Colleges, WASC, is the accrediting body for universities in the western part of the United States. And so that's WASC. That accredits all of San Francisco State. Within that, there is counselor accreditation that is specific to counseling. This is, I think, a really important and helpful thing to look for as well. We are accredited by the Council for Accreditation of Counselor and Related Educational Programs, that is CACREP, and that is the largest and oldest accrediting body of counseling in the country. In addition, school counseling is accredited by the California Commission on Teacher Credentialing, and that is an essential credential for the PPS. Now our faculty, the photos that are on this slide are the bright smiling faces of each of our full-time faculty members. In addition, we have 20 part-time faculty who teach courses, both clinical and foundation courses with us. Most of them are practicing either in colleges, universities, private practice, nonprofits, hospitals, all kinds of different settings. So they bring current expertise to the classes that they teach. Of our full-time faculty, some are also currently practicing counseling. Most of us are also doing research and writing, speaking. Our faculty are some of the leaders in the field of counseling, and especially in our specific areas. You can see our website for bios of our faculty. Up next, what is it like to be a student in the program? And the photos that I have posted here show many different cohorts of our students doing different things. The top is a photo of a whole bunch of us at Rock the School Bells at Skyline College. Those are our alumni and students. That's an amazing program for those of you interested in community college or hip hop pedagogy. The slide that's in the middle there is one of the years that I took my class to Project Homeless Connect, which is a long-time community relationship that I have, and I'm able to bring my students there in terms of volunteering. Pre-COVID, it's starting to come back now as the world is opening up, and so hope to do that again. And then The bottom picture is a photo of some of our graduates who were presenting at a conference from the clinical rehabilitation counseling program. So in this section of the presentation, I will talk about course load, internships, time to graduation, opportunities for community building, resources, and what is it to be in a professional training program. So courses and load. Our program and KCREP requires that a master's degree in counseling requires 60 units of coursework required for the degree. You must have one specialization. You may have an emphasis on top of that, but a minimum of one specialization. So what are the courses that are required? There are core classes, and those classes are the same across all specializations. There's about 45 units of that, and those are things like ethics, lifespan development, psychological foundations, career counseling. There's a whole list that all of the specializations take. In addition, there are between 2 and 4 specialization classes. And if you choose an emphasis, you would take those 2 to 4 classes for that specific emphasis. In addition, there are internship classes for every semester that a student is in internship. We are specifically a fall and spring program. And we do sometimes have a couple of courses offered in the summer, but that varies by year depending on what the student need is and also by funding. Our classes each meet 3 hours, 1 day a week, and the classes are scheduled on Monday through Thursday. Students in the program will have required classes between 9 and noon, between 1 and 4, between 4 and 7, and between 7 and p.m. Some classes are only offered during the day. Some are only offered at night. Some are only offered in the afternoon. Because all of our students take core classes together, we have to try to collaborate and coordinate between the different specializations. We sometimes have just 1 or 2 sections of a class. And so it is important to know that you will need to be flexible with your schedule. If you are working while you're in the program, you'll need to have an understanding with your employer about flexibility as well. The majority of classes are in person. A few are offered online, but we are an in-person program. We do have a lot of students who are part-time and a lot of students who are full-time. So approximately 50 to 60% of our students are full-time students and complete their coursework in 2 years. I'll talk in a minute about how that lays out in terms of length, time to degree, and other things in terms of full-time and part-time. So, time to graduation. First thing is, do you have a specialization only, or do you have a specialization and emphasis? If you have a specialization only, you will need to complete a minimum of 60 units. If you have an emphasis in addition to that specialization, you will complete between 63 and 72 units. If you are going full-time and you have a specialization only, you will be able to finish in 2 years. If you have a specialization only and you're going part-time, the length to degree depends on how many units you take each semester. That typically would be 3 years, 4 years, sometimes 5 years, sometimes 6 years. The maximum number of years that the university allows is 7 years. We have very few students who do that. Most of our students complete their degree within 2.5 to 3 years, some 4. If you have a specialization and emphasis and you're going full-time, you will be able to complete within 2 to 3 years. If you have a specialization and emphasis and you go part-time, that's going to be 3+ years. Depends on which specialization and emphasis. Some combinations will require 3 internships. The other thing I'm going to mention that may make a difference in terms of your time to degree is that if you are a student who's going to need more assistance with writing, with your writing skills, you will be required to take a writing class in order to meet the entry graduate writing standards. That will add an additional 3 units, and you would need to take that in your first fall semester. For our program, the way that we assess and recommend whether a student will need that course is through the personal statement that you submit with the admissions application. I want to encourage you to be honest with yourself, though, about your writing skill. And you can choose to take that class, even if we don't identify you as somebody who needs to take the course. The course is open to you, and it will help you develop writing skills to be successful in the program. Internships are a huge part of our program. It's one of our prideful areas, and it's honestly one of the things that students remark and alumni talk about as having the biggest impact in their training, in addition, of course, to our faculty and some of the other experiences that you have. For students, for each specialization, there are 2 years of internship required. Those must be in 2 different settings. So 1 year in one setting, 1 year in a different setting. And again, some combinations of specialization and emphasis may require 3+ years. The internship provides training at a master's level counseling skills, and we have more than 200 approved sites. In the first year of internship, students do 12 to 16 hours per week at the internship site. It may also be a combination of some telehealth or remote counseling that they might do, but that's dependent on the internship site. In the second year internship, it's 16 to 20 hours per week devoted to the internship. That does not include the internship class that you take on campus. Internships are weekday, daytime hours. Very rarely are there evening or weekend hours for internships. While you're in an internship, again, it's master's level counseling skills supervised by a professional counselor. You must be enrolled in practicum or internship courses concurrently while you're doing internship. There are a few internship sites that may offer a stipend. Some offer an hourly rate. Most internships, though, are not paid, and that's an important thing to know. It's a trade-off. The internship sites provide training. They provide the opportunity for students to get supervision, to grow, and may not have the funds to pay the interns. And so that is an important thing to know. For that reason, we are very, very picky and specific in reviewing sites that apply to be internship sites to make sure that what they're offering is actually a training experience, not free labor. Because we know that you as a student are giving your all in that site, and so you should be getting the training in return. Current jobs are generally not approved as internship sites for a whole variety of reasons. We explain that in the orientation, we explain it on our website, but I'll say just very briefly to summarize, it is because if you are currently working in that job, then that job does not require master's level counseling skills because obviously you don't have a master's degree yet. And so it's essential that the internship actually provides opportunities to develop and grow skills that you currently do not have. But again, there's more information about that, and those are questions that folks can ask once they're in the program. So another question that came up in the registration was about what support is there for students finding internships. It's important to note, as I said, that we have 200 internship sites that have been approved. It is essential that students only apply to internship sites that have been pre-approved by the department. All sites that want to be an internship site for us must submit an application, and we review them. The faculty reviews them, the internship coordinator reviews them, because we want to make sure that they're providing appropriate experience and supervision for the interns. Sites that meet the Department of Counseling, the BBS, and the KCREP standards are pre-approved by the department. And again, students only choose pre-approved sites. We have a master list that we give access to students that lists all of the internships that have been approved, as well as the contact information. We also offer an internship fair for incoming students at orientation, and we do an annual internship fair for continuing students in February. That is the majority, where the majority of students will contact possible internship sites. Following the internship fair, they also have the master list to work off in terms of contacting those sites. It's very much like a job search, except we have already culled and brought together, curated, if you will, the internship sites that you will be contacting. There are a number of people within the department that support students in that process. Again, we have an internship coordinator. Each student has a faculty advisor, and that faculty advisor can also assist with that. And the specialization coordinator can also, specialization coordinator can also assist with that. Once the student is in an internship, they are also in the internship class, and so their instructor serves as a liaison to their internship site and a liaison to their supervisor, in addition to being the instructor for the class. Some other questions asked about opportunities for community building and general support for students. So as I mentioned, that each student is assigned a faculty advisor, and that's the advisor that you would stay with for your entire program. And in addition, there is a specialization cohort that you would have. And what that means is that, especially in the internship class or in the specialization classes, you'll get to know the other students within your specialization. You'll also find that you have classes repeatedly with students from other specializations as well. We don't segregate here. And so developing relationships with people who have similar interests in terms of populations, in terms of special interest areas, there's lots of opportunities for that. In addition, we have a student counseling association. And one more thing that's fairly new, and I haven't gotten on this slide yet, is there's also a new organization within our department, which is a first generation student counseling association. And so those are students within our program who identify as first generation students. And so those two organizations, the Counseling Student Association and the First Gen Counseling Association, are both here and supporting students. We work in collaboration with the department as well. So we offer, between the three organizations, different workshops, alumni panels, social events, different things like that. We also, starting this year, have a peer mentoring project, and that is continuing students matched up with incoming students to provide a contact and a connection for students in their first year. We also, in the spring, will be launching a mentoring project with alumni mentoring students who are close to graduation. Across campus, there are also numerous resources available, and I've just listed a few here. Disability Programs and Resource Center, the DPRC, is an essential service for anyone who will be wanting accommodations while they're in the program related to disabilities. In addition, there's the Equity and Community Inclusion area, and that houses many of the community and equity organizations on campus, such as the Black Unity Center, the Dream Center, the LGBTQ Center, many more. Graduate Studies is a really important resource, and their website, you'll find information on funding your education, specifics about tuition, fees, financial aid. They have links for off-campus housing. They have links for international students and applicants. There was a question that came in about specific international transcripts, etc. It's important to get those questions answered by the International Students Office and Graduate Studies. In addition, there's counseling and psychological services on campus. We do have a clinic that's associated with counseling and psychological services where interns actually provide services to campus community under supervision. And we keep separate that's the Peggy Smith Clinic. That is kept very separate from counseling and psychological services. So our students are able to access counseling and psychological services as clients without seeing their colleagues from the program. There's also a food plus shelter plus success on campus, and that focuses on helping people with housing instability, food instability, and all kinds of other resources. One of the cool things is Gator, I'm blanking on the name of it, Gator Grub, which is an app that students can get where they'll get notifications about free food on campus. Maybe there's an event and there's food that hasn't been eaten, hasn't been touched. So in the app, the event will post that, and then students can brush there and get some tasty treats. There's also groceries given out on, I believe it's Thursdays, once a month in the student center. The Student Health Center is also an important resource, and take a look at their website if you want to find out what kinds of services students are eligible for. As part of your fees as a student, you are paying for all of these. And so it's important for you to know that you have those at your disposal. There is also the gym and the wellness center and many other resources on campus. Some of the other questions have to do with scholarships, funding, and opportunities. Again, it's really important to take a look at the financial aid website. It's also helpful to take a look at the Graduate Studies Funding Your Education website. And if you take a look on our Department of Counseling Scholarships and Training Grants website, you'll see we have 5 different scholarships that we offer each year to students. And there are also 2 training grants that we've been fortunate to have over the past several years that provide actually very large stipends for students, specifically in integrative behavioral health and rehabilitation counseling. And we are always looking for new training grants. Those are very difficult grants to get. We're applying for another one right now, and each year we hope for more and more. It is important to note, though, that as a teaching institution, CSUs, Cal State universities within the California State University system, the fees are lower and they are teaching institutions. And so there often are not as many positions like paid research assistants or graduate assistants positions. There's not tuition remission generally. We do have sometimes a few research or graduate assistant positions, but they are fairly few. The internships generally are not paid, as I mentioned. More and more, we try to encourage that and advocate for that. There are more of them who are able to pay, but that really does vary. We do have an instructor-mentee program where students who want to get experience teaching will work with an undergraduate instructor with a particular class. We have our careers and critical thinking class. We have our counseling minor courses, a multicultural human relations class. And for students who do that experience, there is a small stipend for that as well. For folks who are SF State staff members, there is a fee waiver program. And so that's important to take a look at if you are currently a staff member at SF State. If you're not a staff member, but are interested in applying to be a staff member, go to the Human Resources webpage and you'll see the different staff positions that are open and available. If you see some that are open that you may be qualified for, if you actually apply and are offered the position, do check out the fee waiver program for staff. So what does it mean to be in a professional training program with professionalism expectations? Well, first of all, one thing I don't see on here, which is really important, is we need to abide by a code of ethics that is defined by our profession. That is the American Counseling Association Code of Ethics. And so it's essential that we as faculty, our internship sites, and our students follow those codes of ethics. In addition, the licensure bodies have ethical standards and expectations of professionals within the field. And so we frame our expectations around those standards. We as a program have a strong commitment to multicultural and social justice values, and we expect our students to do the same. We expect students and ourselves to be accountable, to participate, and to show up. We expect collegial student behavior as well as collegial faculty behavior. We expect communication with advisors and instructors. It is different in a graduate program than in an undergraduate program. Developing relationships with your advisors and your instructor can be long-term relationships and also can really be an important part of your professional development. We also expect students to look ahead to ensure that they're choosing a reasonable course load, a reasonable internship load, and balancing responsibilities, knowing all of the additional responsibilities that they may be carrying outside. So for students who have extensive family responsibilities or work responsibilities, that would mean taking a reasonable course load and internship load, and sometimes being flexible in terms of changing how much we're able to attend in those different arenas of our life. We also expect students to be prepared for class as well as faculty to be prepared for class. We expect folks to seek help when needed. And in a previous session, somebody had asked about the thesis or the capstone project. In our program, that's the Culminating Experience Project. And that is designed for students to be able to bring together everything they've learned, the expertise that they've gained into a large project. For the marriage family therapy students, that is an in-depth case study paper, an extensive paper, usually between 40 and 80 pages long. For the other specializations, there's a choice of in-depth case study for some specializations, but also a research proposal, a program design, a grant proposal, a program evaluation. Those are a range of different things. Those are done during the second year internship year. So you work with your second year internship instructor and register for the Culminating Experience Project class. They'll facilitate you in writing that over the course of the year. So we also sometimes have questions about who are our students and demographics specifically, but also program outcomes in terms of what's the licensure rate, what's the rate that people get their credentials, what are the graduation rates, what are time to graduation. So on our Department of Counseling website, you'll see two different reports that we post every year. These are reports that are required by CACREP, our accrediting body. One of them is our annual program performance report. And within that, we provide demographics, but we also provide information about program evaluation that we have done throughout the year, surveys of students, different things like that, and assessment of student professional dispositions, as well as the students' knowledge performance indicators. Again, those are required by our accrediting body. The Vital Statistics report shares demographics, time to graduation, the types of settings, and how many graduates report that they are employed. And that's based on a survey. It's not 100% response rate from our graduates, so it gives us an idea, but it doesn't tell us 100%. But check out those reports to get some more information. So admissions, this is a key question, and I already see a question in chat about this. So I'm going to hold off because I'm answering this question very shortly. So the first thing is we use a holistic admission criteria. And what that means is that we have multiple different things in the application that we consider when we're reviewing the applications. Just very briefly, that includes the personal essay, personal statement, where you share with us who you are, why you're pursuing this, how did you get to this point, what are things about you that we should know, why are you choosing this particular specialization in counseling? Why are you choosing graduate program, and what has prepared you to be a graduate student in this type of a field? We also look at previous academic success. The university requires a minimum of a 3.0 GPA. If someone's whole profile is stellar, outstanding, we really, really want them, and their undergraduate GPA is slightly below 3.0. If we want to recommend admission for that student, we would petition graduate studies to make an exception. The lowest that we can petition, though, would be a 2.75. Below that, we're not really able to petition for that. We also look at other educational experiences. We look at letters of recommendation, and there are 2 letters of recommendation required. I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. But also want to really recommend, there's very detailed instructions on our admissions webpage about all of these areas. We also look at counseling related work or volunteer experience. We look at other types of work experience, and we look at the whole package in terms of the skills, knowledge, and experience related to diversity that the applicant brings. We score each of these areas, and then we also have a global rating of each application. I will say that each application is reviewed by a team of 2 reviewers. Each reviewer independently reviews every single application, and then those 2 reviewers come together and reconcile their recommendations. They then make the recommendations of the finalists to the specialization coordinator, who takes a look at the ratings from all of the teams and then makes decisions about who to recommend. There are, in some years, interviews required. And so in those cases, the teams will recommend who should be in the small pool of people who will be interviewed. And that would be, you would be informed of that later on. So it's also important to note that we recommend some undergraduate preparatory courses. We do not require them. And so we do recommend Counseling 690, which is a field of counseling course. So, and also Multicultural Human Relations. Those 2 courses are a part of our undergraduate counseling minor. So if you are an undergraduate counseling minor, you will have those 2 courses already. In addition, we also recommend Theories of Personality, Lifespan Developmental Psychology, Abnormal Psychology, Ethnic Studies, or Multicultural Relations. Actually, in a conversation earlier today with staff members, we also talked about the importance of critical thinking. And so courses that provide you with additional sort of skills and experience in critical thinking is also really hugely helpful. Again, strengths in writing is really important and helpful in terms of being successful in the program. Going back, though, to our holistic application process, we really, really believe that a person's lived experience adds enormously to their what they can add and bring to the counseling field. And so we don't only look at academic development and academic coursework and writing and all of those things. Those are a piece of the pie, but not the whole package for sure. I want to emphasize, we say this on our website, I'm going to say it again here, we do not require the GRE. That is not something we require. If you upload it for other programs, we do not look at it. That is not a part of our process at all. All right, so Cal State Apply online application. One question that is in the chat that I think I have addressed a little later, but I'm just going to mention it now. We do not admit students for spring semester. This is a fall only admit. So the application that you have for that's open right now and is due by January 15th, That is for admission for next fall of 2023. If you do not apply during this window, but want to apply in the future, you would apply next year for fall of 2024. Okay, so in the Cal State Apply, it's an online application. That is the only way to apply to our program. Actually, that's the only way to apply to any Cal State programs. It's going to ask you personal information. Most of that personal information at the very front of the Cal State Apply is not something that we ever see. It asks a lot of demographic information. It might ask financial or income information or family information. Those are things that we don't look at. What we do look at is your academic history, your unofficial transcript, and supplementary program materials. You will need to upload a resume. You will upload a personal statement, and that must be authored by you. It's fine for you to get feedback from other people, to get input from other people, but you must be the author of this personal statement, because this is the way that we get to know you. And it is also the way that we get a sense of whether you're going to need additional assistance with writing. That's only for us to help you if we recommend you to the program. Writing is not necessarily something that we screen people out of the program for their writing quality, as long as they're comprehensible, as long as we can understand and the personal statement is coherent and written well in terms of communicating your ideas and who you are. Again, on our website, there's information in detail about what to include in the personal statement. We require unofficial transcripts. There is an experience summary form where you will put in information about your counseling experience and other experience. It's going to ask for the site. It's going to ask for the number of hours, the dates, and some additional information. In addition, you will need to submit 2 letters of recommendation. These should come from academic and or professional sources. So for example, past supervisors, past faculty members, mentors. It is important that these are written by people who understand who you are in the context of becoming a professional counselor. It also could be people who understand you within an academic context. That's fine as well. It's not appropriate to have family members, close friends, relatives, therapists, your own personal therapist, writing those letters of recommendation, because they all have a specific kind of investment and relationship with you that is not actually helpful for us in determining whether this is going to be a good match for you and how you will be as a graduate student in the program. Again, the deadline is January 15th. It is for fall admission, no spring admits. The online application, as you know, is already available. The process for submitting the letters of recommendation is very specific, and this really ought to be the very first thing you do once you start your Cal Apply application. You will want to put in the email addresses of folks who have already agreed to write your letters of recommendation. Again, we only accept 2. Once you put in their email and their contact information, Cal Apply will email them directly and let them know that you've identified them as a recommender, and it will provide a portal, a link for them to submit their letter of recommendation. The letters must be submitted by the letter writers through Cal Apply. We cannot accept hard copies of letters at the office. Those must go in through Cal Apply, and they must be submitted by the recommender. Our program also has a small processing fee of $25 in addition to the university application fee. This allows us to review the large numbers of applications and provide support to applicants through the process in terms of the different types of information sessions we offer, things like that. Application instructions are available on our website, And information about how to submit the fee online is also in the application section of our website. Again, some specializations will select applicants for an interview before making final admissions decisions. And all applicants, sorry, let me explain this correctly. We do not review any of the applications until after the deadline. So there is not any benefit to submitting your application prior to the deadline in terms of when it will be reviewed. They are reviewed all after January 15th. I mentioned, I'm just going to skim over this really quickly in the interest of time. The university does require a pre-admission writing assessment. For us, it's based on your personal statement in the application. We do not require a GRE. Because the writing is assessed through your personal statement, your application also includes an affidavit that you will sign stating that you are the original author of your personal statement. I've already talked about the graduate level writing course, so I'll move on. So some questions are about applications and acceptance. I will share that last year there were 537 completed applications. I don't recall the number of people who started an application. It was 800 or 1,000, or a lot of applications. 839. Thank you to our staff person. 839 started application, 537 completed the application. The largest number of applications come into the MFCC program. So you can see last year, the acceptance rates, the career specialization was able to accept about 25% of the applicants. CMHC accepted about 11% of the applicants. College counseling accepted about 25% of the applicants. The MFCC program accepted only 6%, and school counseling accepted just 17%. MFCC accepts about 20 students each year, and that they received over 300 applications last year. The career accepts about 5 students. CMHC, college, and school each accepts about 10 students. After the application process is over, applicants are usually recommended for admission in late March or so. We recommend them to graduate studies, and the official offer comes from graduate studies. But we do try to notify applicants by late March if they're being recommended for admissions. Again, some programs, particularly school counseling, requires an interview as a part of the process. So after they choose the small select group of students who will be interviewed, they'll reach out to the applicants for that. There were just a couple of additional questions that I couldn't find a way to weave into the rest of the PowerPoint presentation. One was about summer classes. Again, just a few are offered, and it depends on the needs of students. I'm getting ready to send a poll out to students right now, current students, about what classes they would want next summer. Examples of work versus volunteer counseling related experience. That really varies depending on the type of specialization that you're applying to. So for example, college counseling, working or volunteering in a college or university setting would fit. For school counseling, obviously that's in a school setting. For mental health counseling, that could be in a nonprofit that provides mental health counseling. It could be working on a crisis line. It could be working in a residential facility that provides support, mental health support. There are all kinds of different kinds of things that will help someone get counseling experience. Another question about demographics, graduation rates, licensure rates. As I said earlier, see our vital statistics report and annual performance reports on our website for information. If you need more information about the program, again, take a look at our website. Really very carefully read the instructions in the online application packet on our website for answers. If the answer is not on the website or in this session, You are free absolutely to email questions to apply msc@sfsu.edu. Right now, if you have not posted, if you have additional questions, we have a few more minutes that I will try to answer as many questions as I can. Go ahead and put those in the chat. It looks like several people have directly messaged me. It's better, I think, if you message the whole group, and that way everybody can see the questions, especially because our office staff folks are going to be trying to respond to questions in the chat as well. And if you send it directly to me, they won't see the questions. One question: being in a dual enrollment, getting an AA while in high school affect the decision process? No, not at all. We wouldn't look at that as a factor. What you may want to do, there may be some reasons why you chose to do that, and you may want to talk about that in your personal statement. Again, who you are and how you came to be, what experiences you have, those are all important things. And so if that says something about you that you think is important to share with us, please include that in your personal statement. Another question for the cohorts: how do the different timelines work? Full-time versus part-time. So we are not a rigid cohort model. So for some programs, you must take classes in the same order at the same time as the other students in your program. We want to be flexible. We know that we have students who are part-time, that they work, they have families, they have jobs, they have all kinds of different things. And so cohorts sort of become a natural thing that occurs by taking the internship class or the specialization classes. So you start to have, you start to develop relationships with your cohort in that way. That does not necessarily mean that you will be in every class with the same people. We have a recommended course sequence, and on the academics part of our website, you'll see for each specialization, they have created a roadmap for students in their specialization that says in what order classes should be taken or are recommended to be taken. It all depends on prerequisites and things like that. But in that way, it doesn't really matter whether you're full-time or part-time. Some people like to try to stay in step with the students, their colleagues that they were admitted with. And so in that way, people may choose to go full-time versus part-time, or arrange their process in a variety of different ways. Let's see. I don't know whether the interviews would be in person, Zoom, or either. That would be the program. I'm guessing it would be Zoom, but I don't know for sure. Let's see. You do not, when you apply, you do not need to say whether you want to be full-time or part-time. That's not a part of our process. That's just the decision that you make. And in collaboration with your faculty advisor is a good idea. Usually in the orientation is where folks talk about that. For employees who are wanting a fee waiver, that's something you need to look into with HR. I can't answer that question at all. If you Google SFSU fee waiver employees or staff fee waivers, you'll see the section that talks about that. Types of philosophies and approaches to therapy do we teach in LMFT and LPCC program? We are an eclectic program. So we are firmly rooted in multicultural and feminist perspectives. We also have some folks who have expertise in motivational interviewing and all kinds of different. We are not a program that says we are somatic or we are psychodynamic. We really believe that it's important to have a wide range of opportunities. So the people who teach in our program come with different perspectives, different philosophies, and different approaches. Social activities, there are a range of different things. We have a graduation celebration at the end specifically for our department. In addition, we have our Counseling Student Association has some social activities. That's really changed over the last couple of years with COVID. And so we're still sort of trying to figure out what does that look like in the program. Let's see. classes are, oh, one question is about working students or people with families can take classes only 1 or 2 days a week. That's actually true of all our students. So when I create the schedule along with our staff people, Katsufumi, I want to say thank you so much to one of our staff people, starts the schedule. I work on that. We try to develop the schedule so students of a particular specialization, the majority of their courses are on 2 days a week. Sometimes there's a little overlap where there might be a third day, but we really try to make it so that it's 2 days a week if the student's going full time. If the student is going part-time, hopefully they'll be able to choose courses that can line up on that one day. It's something that a student would need to work with their faculty advisor about. We do what we can to make that happen. But again, there are 6 different specializations, emphases, etc. Okay, let's see. Volunteer work experience. If you have not had any specific experience in counseling, you can put NA for the counseling experience form. Not everybody has something to put in there. A teacher wanting to become a school counselor, what I would recommend is that goes in, you sort of think about your role there as a teacher. Certainly teaching is different from counseling, very different in many ways. And so that would go in the other experience section. If there are things that a teacher might have done that are more counseling related, the socio-emotional aspect, that might be something that goes in there. It all depends on what it is that you've done. Let's see, what does the engagement between faculty, mentors, professors, and students, I assume the question is, what does that look like? So there is, all students meet with their faculty advisor a minimum of 1 time each semester to plan out courses for the following semester. In addition, you're always welcome to schedule appointments to meet with faculty advisor any other time, as well as any other faculty that you have an interest in learning more about their research, developing a relationship with, mentoring with, as well as instructors in your classes. And so it really varies depending on the student and the student's time, but also the student's interest in reaching out. So I work very closely with some students, and other students never reach out. Same with students in classes when I teach. Some students are much more likely to use office hours to talk about research. I've actually co-written with students sometimes before, written book chapters or worked on articles or worked on research. There's just a wide range of things that students and faculty might do together. Let's see, is there a strict timeline for accepting? There is a timeline for accepting. I actually, that's going to depend on the timeline of the application. So I can't tell you exactly what that would be. It's not usually 2 weeks from notice, but there is a deadline that both the university has and we have. I will say also that in the recommendations for admissions, we also do develop a wait list. So it is important, if somebody is offered admission, if they can let us know as soon as possible. So if they are not going to come be with us, then we can offer that spot to someone else. The other question, another question, ask about dual enrollment because it factors into the experience section of the application. That is a question I'm not sure I can answer because I don't entirely understand the question about how that relates to the experience section. Experience section has to do with work and volunteer experience, not the educational experience. I don't know if that helps at all. So let's see, gosh, we've got 2 minutes left. Is there anything else that is that folks need to know? Um, Again, I just really want to say how thrilled I am for folks to come tonight. Oh, and I see one person has raised their hand. There is, though, one other question from somebody else. Holistic approach to application review. If someone is coming into this later in life, changing careers, um, the, does it hurt chances if there's not enough specific counseling experience? That doesn't have anything to do with coming into this later in life changing careers. For anyone who doesn't have counseling experience, that can be an issue, especially for some of the specializations that clinical mental health, for example, MFT, those are essential that you have some counseling related experience, because it's important for them to know that you understand what counseling is about from a provider angle. And so that's what I can say about that. And I want to go to Nairi, and I apologize if I mispronounced your name. You had your hand up. Are you still here?
Yeah, is it okay if I unmute?
Yes.
Um,
Just so you know, we are still recording, just in case.
okay, that's fine. It's similar to Brenna's question. I was asking about dual enrollment because to get my BA, it took 2 years less. So there was a smaller amount of time to get counseling experience. So I was also asking the question if it hurt the chances when putting in your application of not
Uh,
having
I
experience.
see. Okay, so it doesn't, it has more to do with what's happened in your life than the actual dual enrollment. So what would be, I think the answer to my question is kind of, or to your question is kind of still the same, in that it is important to have counseling related experience, especially for some of the specializations. Students who are coming right out of undergraduate program, or who've been in a completely different field and not done anything related to counseling, um, that is going to be a much thinner experience profile. And so when the reviewers review that, they'll be looking at that in relation to the other applications. And so the best thing that I can recommend is if you don't have counseling related experience, again, it depends on which specialization you're applying to. But talk about that in your personal statement. If you're not accepted this year and want to apply next year, then definitely go out and get some counseling related experience. I will say that there's a range of different kinds of experiences that you can get. Volunteering in a school may be relevant for school counseling. As a teacher is relevant for school counseling. For college counseling, doing things in your university or community college is really important. Doing things for career counseling, there are all kinds of different places and things that you can volunteer for. This is just a one-time shot, but there are things like Project Homeless Connect where folks can volunteer. There's an event coming up December 14th in person. So doing those kinds of things can be helpful. Again, the specialization varies. Read the specialization sections on our website. I see that it's time for us to wrap up. And so I hope this has been helpful. Again, we will post the video once we get it captioned, officially captioned. And I have the slides posted there already. The instructions, a big thank you to Katsufumi and Gary, our staff people who have developed those instructions in great detail to help you. We wish you the best of luck with this application process. I understand it's stressful. Many of you may be looking at a variety of different programs. It's a lot to decide. It's a big commitment. There are lots of sacrifices along the way. And so really thank you for considering us and hope to see your application. Again, yes, please email us if you have any questions. Apply msc@sfsu.edu. Gary and Katsufumi are amazing at answering the phones and emailing. So thanks very much and take care, everyone.